Hey everybody, this is Queer Hustle and I am your host Michelle, and today we're so excited because we have Sam Hernandez with us, a lesbian money coach from the Money Institute. Sam, do you want to introduce yourself to the crew?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and just talk with you. I am a 26-year-old living in California, and after college, I graduated and went into insurance. And then somehow I found my way into being an entrepreneur a couple of years later. So I have, a really crazy, weird story that I'm excited to share. And I'm also a dog mom, which is super important about me.
Okay, so noted. And now I'm very excited to talk to any young entrepreneur because so many folks think that they have to have a whole career doing something else before they can start a business, and that's an awesome path, and it's a traditional path. But some people just go for it right off the
Mhm.
jump. And not only have you gone for being an entrepreneur, but you're also coaching other people about money. Tell us about that. Like, why money coaching? What got you into that?
Yeah. So I actually, like, after college, had a good corporate job, and that's all I wanted was like I felt like that was financial stability. Having a corporate job that you were getting a solid paycheck, every other week. And it turns out that that's not what financial stability is when you don't know how to manage it. And so I graduated college with like $20,000 in student loan debt. So I already had that and I was working towards paying it off. But then on top of that, I managed to get another $20,000 of credit card debt, kind of like out of it, just accumulated on its own. I don't really know where it came from, but that kind of made me take a step back and realize, like, wow, it doesn't matter what my salary is. Like, I clearly don't know what I'm doing with my money. And so I made an Instagram account to just hold myself accountable. And there's this great debt free community on Instagram, and everyone's really supportive of each other. And as I was like posting about my journey, I had a lot of people messaging me and asking me for advice or help. And so, and I've always loved talking about money since, I was little. Like I want all the money. And so um yeah, so when people were asking me for advice, I was like, you know what? Like, I would love to do this as a career. And I just like took a leap and invested in another money coach who's like pretty big. And I invested in her course teaching you how to be a money coach. And then I just kind of went from there.
I love that. And I love that we're talking about coaching courses in this kind of positive light too, because I think a lot of people see it. And, obviously we're business coaches and we do courses and have a lot of friends that do courses, but a lot of people see this as
Mhm.
kind of like pyramid scheming. What they
Yeah.
don't see it is, I think that there's a lot of positive, it's like a positive pyramid, right? You've got
Mhm.
somebody that's teaching other people how to impact other people, and the
Mhm.
impact is then exponential. And I think that's
Exactly.
fucking awesome.
Yeah. I like working with another coach gave me the confidence that I could do it and the accountability to actually do it. Like a lot of times coaching really just comes down to accountability. And that's what you're paying for, someone else holding you accountable.
It's funny because we know a lot of other coaches, and we all kind of joke that whatever our niches is kind of like the gateway drug. We teach business and entrepreneurship, but I have friends that are health coaches, money coaches, fitness coaches, relationship coaches, all kinds of things. We're all teaching the same stuff at the end of the day, which is, how do you set a goal? How do you break it down
Mhm.
into manageable pieces? How do you hold yourself accountable and find community support around taking the steps that you
Mhm.
need to reach the goal? And that's what
Right. We're
you're,
just the guide. We're
yeah.
guiding them on this journey, whatever the journey is.
Absolutely. Now, I loved when you just said, I love money. I want money. Because I feel like I want to talk about this. Coming out of, we're in queer community, obviously intersects very heavily with a lot of progressive spaces. Sometimes people are a little weird about money, and especially around saying that they want it. Sometimes it
Mhm.
feels stigmatizing to be out here saying, hey, I want money. I deserve money. I should get
Mhm.
money. And we feel like our friends in our community are going to react negatively to that. What do you say when you get any negative reaction to that, or to your clients who get negative reaction to that?
I definitely have had clients who come in like one of the many things that we do is a manifesting exercise during every session. And one of the questions are like, how do you currently feel about money? How do you want to feel about money? And then basically like, what are two dreams that you made happen to manifest them to come true? And my clients really struggle with that because they don't think that they deserve money. And they're like, well, I don't want to be greedy and I don't want to, take money from other people, but I don't look at money like that. I look at it as an abundant source. We literally print it.
Right.
And so there's plenty of money out there for everyone, but when you think of it as a scarce, like from a scarce mindset, then yeah, if I am charging, you $2,000, then you're losing $2,000, but you're gaining so much knowledge. Like there's always a trade-off for it.
Right.
And so it's just like reworking that mindset and getting people to understand, like, it's not greed. I'm not trying to be a bajillionaire. I just want to live comfortably, and I want to be able to travel the world with my dog and run my business and sustain that lifestyle and have enough to retire. It's just like, I have my goals. I know where I want to be. I'm not just greedily like, let me take all the money I can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you said about, hey, we literally print it. Money is conceptual. It's literally, it's not real. It's a
Mhm.
concept that we made up because bartering is
Exactly.
tedious. And after a while, people got sick of keeping track of, how many bushels of barley like a necklace was
Mhm.
worth or whatever. And we
Or you
created,
can't trade a block of gold for like a cup of water, like
right.
you have to cut it. Yeah.
So we
So
came up with money, and now money is conceptual. Money is literally represent. It used to be gold standard, represented by actual gold. Now it's just fully
yeah.
conceptual, ones and zeros, and it's an expression of an exchange of value.
Mhm.
And
Exactly.
and there's not a limit on value.
No. And people don't value themselves enough is what I found. Like even starting my own entrepreneur journey, I was very scared to charge my worth. And I was very timid to even charge, period, because I was just like, well, what value can I really bring? Like, am I good enough to charge that much? Like, and also pricing in the entrepreneur community is very like hush hush. And so even other money coaches, like I don't know what they're charging necessarily for their program. Although I have made some friends now and I'm in another coaching program, I have a coach. And so I do have a good sense from them, like what they're all charging and like how much is normal. But starting out, you have no clue.
Right.
And so just like figuring out some sort of price and then being able to sell yourself and ask people for it or tell people that that's what you're worth and then let them decide. But we come into the negotiation like so timid, like, well, like, what are you willing to pay me? It's like,
Yeah.
no, like, it's going to cost you like $100 an hour. Are you willing to pay that?
Right. And people will come in and like, oh, well, they don't have the money or they don't have the budget. And I think, creating this distinction between what's an expense and what's an investment is really important. And I have to talk through
Yes.
this with starting entrepreneurs all the time. I have like little pithy sayings like, it's not a couch. It's not a fucking couch that you're going to buy and is going to sit there. When you're
Mhm.
investing in something that's going to make you more money down the road, you have to approach that differently than I went and bought a whole new wardrobe or I bought a new car or I bought, something
Mhm.
that's going to immediately lose value.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, but it's just how much you trust yourself really to gain that investment back. And that's where people are having the disconnect is that they don't trust themselves enough to get the true value out of the program.
And I think that's exactly right. And when somebody brings up trust, I'm kind of like, look, you have to trust yourself. I have to trust you. You have to trust me. There's a lot of trust that has to go
Yeah.
into this because if you don't engage and you don't do the work, then you're not going to get a value.
Exactly. It's like I know I trust myself. I know what I can provide and like the transformation you can have for me, but do you trust yourself? Because if you're not going to put in the time and effort, then there's nothing I can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about money from a consumer standpoint and then from a business standpoint, because you said, in debt-free community, like, yes,
Mhm.
and on a consumer debt level, we definitely want people to not be paying high interest credit card debt because they wanted new clothes or something like that. On
Mhm.
a business level, we absolutely want people to be using debt as leverage to grow a business when they can take out money at 5% from the bank and then get a 200% ROI on it because they invested in advertising. I have a
Right.
really hard time getting people sometimes from, not anymore, but because it's gotten easier, but getting people from understanding debt this way to understanding debt
Mhm.
this way, and to the point where I say, hey, we have a whole different word for it. We call it leverage in business. Like,
Right.
stop thinking of
I
it
would
like a coach.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting that you bring that up because I kind of think of it as an investment like we've been talking about. Like if since I've started my business, which was like last March, I've invested like $13,000 in myself, doing courses, working with other coaches, like and I don't see that as a waste of money or money lost or, debt. It's all investments that have gotten me to where I am that I was able to quit my corporate job, that I'm able to, I mean, I moved back in with my parents, so that's been a blessing and my expenses are very low, but I've been able to sustain paying off my debt still, which is huge for me. And running this business and making money in it, but being able to put money back into it. So, yeah, I think it's like on the business side, like a whole, like it's just a moving like machine. Like you have to decide what's worth the investment and what's not. But I definitely like take like loans from, my business. Like, okay, I'll pay for this now, and I'm expecting to get the return.
Absolutely. In a business, we don't want to ever spend any money out of the business that we're not going to get a return on unless we're taking it for ourselves and investing it in something else.
Exactly.
Because we want to be diverse in terms of our personal portfolios as well, right?
Hmm.
You just said that you started this business last March. We're recording this right now in March of 2021. That means you started in March of 2020, right
Yeah.
at the beginning of the pandemic. What the hell were you thinking, and how has that been going?
Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't even realize that. It's been a year. Wow.
Yeah.
So, I started the Instagram page in January, so that was kind of like the year mark I had in my head, but that wasn't when I actually started trying to be a coach or start a business. It kind of like took a couple of months. But I didn't end up quitting my corporate job until last October, like the end of October. So I was still running this business and doing my corporate job up until October. And then since then, I've kind of just like fully launched, especially into the queer space. Cause before I was just kind of feeling around trying to be a money coach in general and like see what works, like throwing, pasta at the wall and see what sticks. And and then I eventually kind of realized like, hey, I don't talk about my sexuality at all. And it's like it's a part of who I am. It's literally tattooed on my body. Like I have the like two like the women's symbols. Um and I have a little mini rainbow on my wrist right here. It's just tiny, but it's like it's a huge part of who I am. It's a huge part of my identity. I've worked so hard to come here. Like, why am I hiding it in my business? And so that's when I really like kind of like niched down and was like, this is what I want to do. I want to specifically cater to the queer community.
And not just to the queer community, to lesbians specifically. So we got all the way niche down into lesbian money. Talk to us about lesbians and money. Talk to us about why lesbians specifically. What are some of the like who are your clients, and why are they coming to you, and what are you kind of helping them work through?
Yeah, so I definitely think there's a distinction. So I want to empower like everyone in the LGBTQ community. I just identify as a lesbian. And so I do help people that are gay males or bisexual, transgender. And so it really does like expand past just lesbian, but there are specific issues for each segment within the queer community. And so the reason why I chose to niche down into the queer community is because when I was reflecting back on, that $20,000 of debt I had accumulated when I first realized that I was really bad with money, I kind of sat down and after I processed it for a while, I realized that a lot of it had to do with the fact that I was like coming out, coming into myself, realizing who I was, exploring. And so a lot of it was emotional spending from being queer and like dealing with that journey. And emotional spending is when you're buying things that just fulfill that need in the moment, but not necessarily, it's not a sustainable purchase, or you later regret it. And you make the purchase basically just because you are feeling a heightened sense of emotion in that moment. And so that was happening to me a lot. Like I would be online shopping and be like, "Oh yeah, I need that $100 purse." And then it would come and I'm like, "Why did I buy this?" And so it's like all of those little purchases just add up.
Mhm.
And I just like it was just crazy to me the correlation that I had found between the coming out journey and my finances. And I just wanted to share it with everyone out there so that they don't feel alone or understand why they might be more affected as a queer person. And there's so many like not okay, I shouldn't say so many because nothing is that great within the queer community, like vast, but there are a decent amount of studies that show that queer people on average have more debt, less savings, and are worse with their money. And so it's just like another additional like taboo topic for us to kind of overcome.
I love that we're talking about this because I think, when we talk about privilege, a lot of ways that I like to define it is like it's just something that if you're in the privileged position, it's something that you just never would have even thought about. I think
Mhm.
people that have straight privilege don't realize for queer people, not only are we carrying around all this emotional weight, especially as we're trying to come out and figure out how to talk about that, how to embody that, but there's also a lot of experimentation that has to happen that does translate straight up to financial expense. If you
Mhm.
are questioning your gender and you're, buying a bunch of different things to try different identities on different looks, that's expensive,
Mhm.
right? Not to mention
Right.
that you're less fucking likely to get employed and stay employed and like all the discrimination that we face. So it's
Mhm.
expensive to be who we are and to express ourselves. And there's a portion of like finding that in the first place
Exactly. And like I am in LA right now, but I was living in San Francisco for the past like 3 years. And it's the gay capital of the world, but it turns out it's really for gay men. And also the only option you have in the gay community to meet other people are like meetups at bars, like partying, drinking, and that's expensive. And so like being able to be within your community equals spending a ton of money.
Mhm.
It's not like you just have a bunch of queer friends that you can go and hang out with and do nothing or sit at the park. It's like, no, to meet these people, you need to go into these environments that cost money. I mean, you most likely will have to pay just to enter just because we don't have our own spaces. And so they're using a venue of someone else's and they have to pay for that? So everything just comes at a cost with being queer.
I know. So we've got the emotional cost, the psychological cost, and we've also got this financial cost, and it's compounded with, less opportunity to make money. So how do you
hmm
start to help people navigate this? Okay, you've spent more and you're making less. Now what?
Yeah, it's definitely a conundrum, but many of my clients are in a situation that they're making enough to live off of and be able to save or pay off their debt, but they are still in the stage of emotional spending and not being able to control their spending habits. That's like the first thing that we tackle so that they immediately see, like several $100s back within their budget that they're able to then reallocate to start paying off that debt, to get out of like done with student loans, to build their emergency fund. So it really comes down to just like rewiring how we use our money and like make sure it's aligned with what our future goals are.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes,
And also, um, some of my queer, it's very interesting to me because there are so many queer entrepreneurs or so many people who are queer that are wired to be entrepreneurs that like my clients end up like if they're not already entrepreneurs, they have a side hustle on top of their job. So they're able to increase their income in that way.
absolutely. And I mean, queer entrepreneurship is my entire jam, my entire mission in life. And the
Mhm.
reason being, it's so much easier to just go out and get for ourselves what other people aren't always handing to us, right? And
Mhm.
doing it in a way that is authentic to us, doing it in a way that's in alignment for us, and not in a way where we feel like we have to kind of shroud or downplay any parts of ourselves in
Mhm.
order to get paid, which is an awful feeling.
Are helping people who we helping like our younger or like, you know, prior self basically. So like I would have loved to have someone, a year ago kind of give me a hand and help me out of this rut, understanding where I'm coming from as a queer person and being in debt. And so like being able to give back in that way has been really amazing too.
Absolutely. And I love that you're younger, you're focused on younger folks. A lot of times I'm working with older folks and older folks listening understand when I say older, I mean, of a certain age, just a little seasoned. Now I'm not calling you elderly. But when we're working with people in their 50s and 60s
Mhm.
who have experienced queer life very, very differently, there's even more to undo there sometimes from a mindset perspective because these are folks that I mean we're experiencing discrimination now, but these are folks who
Mhm.
experience discrimination at a level that you and I have been shielded from, and have a lot of sort of deep trauma to undo, especially depending on where geographically they were, especially trans folks. We have people that didn't even have a word for trans that were having a trans experience for decades before they
Mhm.
had a word for what it was, and that becomes very interesting because now to talk about authenticity, it's one thing to kind of know your queer
Yeah.
as a teenager in your 20s and then kind of make your way. But to have to be somebody who was sort of in a box for your whole life and are now trying to come out and live authentically, you
Mhm.
know, in the latter part of your life, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, there is. And I can't imagine. And I'm so grateful to be living in the time that like we do now. And I've been able to, I grew up in San Francisco. So it's always been more, accepting than other places could be. So I've definitely been very fortunate on my journey. And I know a lot of younger people are fortunate too, at least to have online communities that and like words to put to what you are and how you're feeling. Like even just and within this past year, there's this master doc that you can Google. It's called like compulsive heterosexuality. So it put a word to like how people were feeling, especially about being like a lesbian versus bi woman. It's like, do I just not like men, or do I just not like most men? Do I prefer women? And it kind of like put a lot of words to things that we all were feeling when we were going through our journeys. And so just like the more as time goes on and people start sharing their experiences and like helping each other out, it's just making it so much easier.
I know, it's so beautiful to see. I mean, we vilify social media a lot, and there's a lot wrong with social media, but this is one of the beautiful things about it, is that so many people have been able to share their stories with each other. There's been a democratization of media because, 20, 30 years ago, the media was controlled by a very certain subset of folks, and that's the messages that got out to everybody. And so there was so much isolation. Now, no matter who you are, what you're going through, you can find somebody fairly easily that's sharing some aspects of your experience to chat with, and that's a wonderful, beautiful thing. And I think when we see older generations saying, "Oh, everybody's suddenly queer, everybody's suddenly trans," it's like, no, we found each other and we can talk about it and we can put words to our experience now.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
And it's more acceptable. So like, yeah, I mean, I personally believe that sexuality is fluid. So like most people might be gay and it's just now they're allowed to be, and it's not so looked down upon.
I always ask this question, and I want to know what your take on it is. For folks that are watching this, that are thinking about starting a business, maybe haven't done that yet, what do you say to them if they're sitting on the fence about that?
Do it. Messy action. Just go. If you know what the business is you want to start an Instagram page, start like connecting with people. Reach out to other queer entrepreneurs. We all love helping each other. Like I've built such an amazing network of people that I reach out to if I need advice or guidance. But just start. It's like, why wait? If it's not going to work, then pivot. It might not, but there's no, harm in just trying.
Messy action. I love it. Put it on a t-shirt. That's a great slogan. Sam Hernandez, thank you so much for being with us today. Very, very exciting to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. It was so nice being here.
And we'll see you next time, everybody.